What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Performance Plus Programming Podcast. Today, we are hitting our last in this series, at least the last plan in this series, on building your engine. And Johnny wants to specifically talk today on heart rate monitors because there are different options out there on the market, and it's important to know the differences between them if you're using this in your conditioning training. So, Johnny, what you got for us?
Again, we've talked a lot about zones and physiology, and one of the best ways we can correlate like what's going on inside your body from a chemical reaction standpoint to something measurable is through a heart rate monitor. And it's become, I think, more trendy within CrossFit as well because people are wearing whoops and they're seeing, strains, and now it's counting steps, and you're seeing a lot of things. And so if you're the person that listened to a lot of podcasts and you're like the previous podcast and you're like, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go figure it out on my own. I want to say, if you're going to use a heart rate monitor, do not use a wrist-based heart rate monitor to do these programs. It is a completely fine as what we'll call like a second order measure, meaning like if you use your whoop every single day and you're going off of your whoop, it's a good relative thing. But when you're training hard in training these steady state things, the optical sensor on a wrist-based heart rate monitor is terrible at monitoring it. There's a new study that just got published this week that kind of adds to this conclusive evidence. But I'll say, just from the people that I work with, we're usually seeing a zone difference in what the wristwatch is reporting to what the chest strap's wearing. So when I work with athletes, it's always in a chest strap where we'll put their heart rate up on a TV so I can like make sure that they understand what's going on. But I worked with a guy yesterday named Nick. He was on the C2 bike, and his whoop reported to him that he was doing this workout in zone 4, which was where he was supposed to be. And his chest strap said he was only in zone 3. So like that kind of difference can be like, hey, that's the difference between I'm getting the physiological change I'm looking for in my conditioning and then not getting it. So it's just an important thing. Again, not that the watches are bad. I use one all the time. I use a Garmin. It's just if you're getting that granular with this stuff, you want to be specific, and the chest strap is much more accurate to what's going on from an electrical standpoint in your heart than the wristwatches.
The chest straps aren't that expensive either. Like they've
No.
come down significantly in their price recently. I believe the one that I have cost me less than $50.
Yes. There's some freaking badass Polar ones and Garmin ones that are like $39, and they're awesome. Like, and if you have a device that like a Garmin watch or an Apple Watch, you can sync a lot of them to it, so you can actually see your heart rate data on your watch. But it's critical. And if you're running, the other thing is the actual cadence that your arms are swinging at will get reported as your heart rate. So sometimes you might be like, man, I swear I was at my VO2 max on that sprint today, but my watch said that my heart rate was 155. Well, that's probably the cadence that your arm was going at. So,
For me,
it's just something to pay attention
I
to.
used to wear the Whoop a lot. I hadn't worn it in at least 2 years now. But last time I wore it, I actually had a phone call with somebody from Whoop, like the week that I started this new band, and I was getting really poor readings. And they were telling me that the location on your wrist is so vital for if it gets accurate readings or not. Because if it gets too far down your wrist, it's going to be right where your radius and ulna, your two forearm bones, come together, and it won't get a good reading. And the difference between me getting a good reading and bad reading was like a quarter of an inch in terms of its placement. And so that's one difficult part with those things. And every time I've used a chest strap, I've always tested each strap when I first got it, and I'll just measure my heart rate just sitting there before and after a workout and compare it to what I'm getting from the chest strap. And the chest strap's always right on track versus Whoop is always a little bit off.
When you get into clinical lab testing stuff, it's like it's the standard, and those PhD guys get even more nerdy about it, but like the chest straps are like the way to go. So if you're listening to this, you're going to go out, you're going to explore the world of working on your engine and changing your energy systems, and you get serious about it, make sure to put a chest strap on. And then I also want to add, like, if you're doing CrossFit, it's still and you care about this stuff, it's a super beneficial thing to just kind of see what you're doing during your Metcons. Like, there's a point, I think, of that I would love to get to from a programming standpoint, where we can quantify like certain movements, certain weights, doing certain things at certain cadences to these heart rate zone trainings. So then we could throw out programs where it's like, hey, we're doing CrossFit, but we're training this physiology that we're talking about that a lot of times we're having to do on steady state equipment to be specific, but we can't do that without heart rate data. So if you wear it and you like track stuff and you get nerdy with it, I would love to hear about it. I would love to hear about like what movements that you do in the gym, like how hard do you have to go on burpees in order to get your heart rate as high as you think it is, like what combinations of things, whether it be like wall ball burpee or wall ball row for a lot of people, gets your heart rate where it's actually pushing up into the zone 5 area. There's just not a lot of research in it, and so I encourage people, one, to wear it to understand what's going on, and then two, if you do wear it and you have any meaningful surprises, email me at johnny@performanceplusprogramming.com, because I sort of live for this stuff. So
One other note before we sign off. So you can track your intensity when you're working on building your engine via heart rate or via wattage,
yep.
how much work you're doing on that piece of equipment. Our programs that you've written for us, Johnny, are all based off of wattage, so you do not have to have a heart rate monitor. I did love wearing my heart rate monitor simultaneously and
Yes.
looking at how my heart rate responded during it, but I thought it was really nice to be able to just focus and look dead ahead at the screen on the erg that I was using and make sure I was in the correct wattage zone as I worked out. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And our running uses paces, and for the same reason, like it's kind of, if Zach was having to try and row and then also look at something that was reporting his heart rate, it'd get distracting and hard and whatever. So I think for training purposes, wattage and pace is usually a lot easier to get to. So you're welcome. We made it easier
I
for you.
work out at very different times of the day as well. So for me, caffeine intake could be very different. Like I could have just had a 14-ounce coffee 20 minutes before my workout, or it could have been 4 hours before, later in the day. And so that would make, for me and in my lifestyle, those workouts, if they were based solely on heart rate, they would vary quite a bit
Yeah,
in terms of
very, very much so.
focusing on what the rower says my wattage is kept me working out at the right intensity.
Oh, weird. Zach's tachycardic today. What's going on with him? Oh, he just had 3 Celsiuses before he did the rowing
I
workout.
don't do energy drinks. I do a coffee in the morning, and then, man, I am addicted to Diet Sundrop. Do they have Sundrop in
Oh,
Atlanta?
yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
I think it's pretty regional. So it's a lot of people haven't heard of it, but I have a Diet Sundrop with my lunch because I'm actually fairly caffeine sensitive.
Me too. But this is a far cry from the Zach that I knew like 5 years ago that was ripping Bang energy drinks, like at certain points to get up for stuff
Yeah, so
like
I used to drink a
seminars.
Bang energy drink before I would lecture. So it would be very, very rare. And I knew how much of it I could drink before starting the course and how much I could drink during the morning. So I would drink half of a Bang energy drink before I started lecturing and then sip the second half and not be done with that till lunch. Because there were a couple times where I had more than half and I start to lecture and it feels like I'm, about to finish Fran. My heart rate's so jacked up. And so, yeah, I don't do that anymore. I'm too old for that.
Yeah, dude, I'm the same. Like once I hit 40, the caffeine, like 3 cups of coffee a day is no longer part of my life. Like I can have one and then I'm good because my sleep's going down
You're
otherwise.
40? I didn't
Yeah,
know you were 40.
I'm to turn 41 in a month and a
Oh,
half. Yeah,
so I'm the young one in
yeah.
Performance
You're
Plus.
freaking, dude, you're like, yeah, you're running circles around the two of us. Not really. I
No,
mean, we
Pamela's
have one
running
of those
circles around both
freak.
of us.
Yeah, yeah, with her eyes closed. I have a really funny story about, you're talking about coffee. 2 years ago, I participated in a medical study at Emory University here, where they took a bunch of endurance athletes and gave people uh, different kinds of ADHD medication, and then some of them a placebo, and had everybody track do this, it's doing the same running workouts, and then track heart rate and recovery. And it was crazy. So if you're a stimulant person, like one, it can massively affect the output of your cardiac output in a workout. And two, uh, the recovery off that stuff's crazy. If you're, banging the Ritalin or whatever the drug that you use is, watch out. It can have a massive impact on your aerobic fitness. So Just
Okay.
FYI. Yeah. All right, people in CrossFit are stoked we're done talking about cardio for a while. People are going to hate this, but we got through it. I think there's some good stuff in there.
Awesome.